Yeah, thank you for watching my channel, guys. Hey, this is a really quick follow-up video to the video I did on the new entry requirements for Colombia. I'm gonna share it up here if you haven't seen it before, but it pretty much just shares with you my journey from Mexico City to Colombia and what I had to show to kind of share with you my whole experience. But what I've been receiving lately is a lot of question about the J&J vaccine. And I really didn't have a definitive answer on that because people were asking if one shot is good enough. And before I really was able to answer that question, I actually went through my own comment section, and I actually went through the comment section of other YouTubers who did this similar type video to see if anyone who came to Colombia after December 14 with the J&J vaccine and not having to take the PCR test. Because that's the real point. Do you need a PCR test if you have the J&J vaccine? I don't think people have a problem knowing that the one vaccine is good enough to get into Colombia. The real question is the one vaccine good enough? And without you needing a PCR test. Let's see what the paperwork say. Let's go to the computer right now. All right, obviously, let's kind of recap on the basic. I mean, most people already know the basic. I mean, obviously, if you unvaccinated, you can't enter Colombia. And of course, if you're less than 14 days, whether you have one or two, you still need a PCR test. You know what I mean? If you're still basing everything off the two doses, those two doses need to be over 14 days old. Of course, again, you got to still present a PCR test with a negative result within 72 hours of booking. I mean, I think most people understands that, and I think most people understand that, and that's why I don't think most people, have already made a decision. They're either coming or not coming based off that rule. A lot of them are not going to get the test because of that. Again, this is not what this video is about. This video is about trying to find some clarification on the one dose J&J vaccine. All right, so let's go to again, this is from the actual U.S. Embassy website in Colombia, but this is the U.S. Embassy website. So obviously this became effect 14 December, which everybody know by now. And there's one other change that's happened since 28 December. Of course, travelers age 18 and above, who pretty much come to the country by cruise ship, regardless of whether or not they stayed in Colombia, must present a COVID-19 vaccination certificate and at least one dose. And they also must take a PCR test, which is right here. I'm gonna make sure I'm put the link to both of these in the description below. So just understand, this became effective December 28th, that if you, for some odd reason, decide to enter Colombia via cruise ship, you gotta have a PCR test, whether you're a citizen or not. Everyone must have a PCR test. And I guess, Colombians are not trusting the cruise ships. Even if you're fully vaccinated on a cruise ship, to enter Colombia, you gotta have the PCR test. Again, that's just for cruise ship. Now, obviously, what I want to share with you now is the actual list of accepted vaccines that Colombia, except from Colombia own list. Let me make sure I click on it and show you that right now. This right here is the list of accepted vaccine. Now, granted, it's in Spanish. I'll be able to translate some of it for you. You know what I mean? It's very simple. I'm gonna go by columns so you know what's in each column. And I'm gonna make sure I write down the columns down so you know what it is. Again, it's in Spanish, but I can read a little Spanish. I can speak just a very little Spanish. And of course, I got Google Translate to help with the rest. So that's what I have right here. Let's go with the first column, which is right here. The first column, this pretty much saying this is the trade name of the vaccine. Now, obviously, when we're thinking about vaccine, we just call them J&J, Pfizer, or Moderna, and leave it at that. But that's not how the scientific community, view the vaccine. They know it by their trade name. This column right here, which is column 2, is the name of the manufacturer. I mean, in this case, it's Pfizer. So we already know that's the name of the manufacturer of this particular vaccine. This one right here is the definition of scheme, pretty much the number of scheme. Right here it says 2 doses between 3 to 12 weeks in between. That's what it's saying in this column right here. This column, which is column 4, is these are the countries that are approved this particular vaccine. Full approval, not just approval for emergency use. These countries have given it full approval. Now, granted, I don't know how old this document is because obviously this is Pfizer and the U.S. has already fully approved the Pfizer vaccine. So obviously this list has been updated, which brings me over to this list right here, which is all the countries. These are the use, pretty much the emergency use authorization. These countries have already approved this vaccine for emergency use, even though it hasn't been technically approved in that country. And if you look down here, it said Estados Unidos, which is the United States, has already approved. Now, granted, we already know Pfizer vaccine has already been fully approved in the U.S. And this list right here, which is column 6, is pretty much emergency use approved by the WHO organization, which is the World Health Organization. And it's pretty much saying yes, C mean yes. So this is the list. Scroll down, as you can see, Pfizer, 2 doses, Moderna, 2 doses, between 4 to 12 weeks. AstraZeneca, which I think is in another country, not in the U.S. We really only have 3 that have been approved in the U.S. or even for emergency use, and that's pretty much Moderna, Pfizer, and of course J&J. AstraZeneca is 2 doses between 4 and 12 weeks. I already mentioned that. Obviously, Brazil already approved it, and of course, this is the one Johnson & Johnson. Now, which is Janssen. Most people, I referred to Johnson & Johnson. I never really referred to Janssen before. A lot of people referred to Janssen. It said dosis única, which means single shot. That's what it says here. Now, obviously, it's been approved, already full approved in Canada. And I want to say it's already been fully approved in the U.S., but I don't know for sure. But it's definitely been approved for emergency use. And we already know that because, quite a few people have taken it. Now, when you scroll down the list, you got a lot of little different stuff, like Sinovac, that's out of China. This one right here is out of, not sure where it's out of, but these are country approved. And then there are these countries like, for instance, India. This one has been approved by hasn't been approved by the WHO, but, it's approved by, India for emergency use only. It hasn't been fully approved. And again, I can go on and on, on and on and on. There's quite a few on this list. Now, keep in mind, these are the vaccines that Colombia will accept. These are all the vaccines. I counted them. There's 24 of them. Colombia is pretty generous about accepting vaccine. They just want you to have a vaccine from the look of this list. So this seems like they cover just about every country in the world, just about, I guess. But it doesn't matter. Colombia just wants you to just have a vaccine, and it's willing to accept anything. Now, for comparison, this is what the U.S. they only accept like 7, Janssen, obviously, Pfizer, Moderna, and these right here. Because don't forget, U.S., required vaccine for non-residents and non-citizen to enter the U.S. back in November. So if you're a non-citizen and you enter the U.S., you got to have one of these vaccines right here. So let's go back to the Colombia list. Again, Colombia, it's weird. I guess where we may use dots here, they use asterisks. And when I saw this asterisk or star, I assumed it applied to something up here, but Colombia don't use it that way. They use it just like a dot, you know what I mean? So it doesn't apply to anything specific, but let me just go ahead and translate what this says, and I make sure I write it on the screen so you can see that. It said, for the first one, it said, all right, so let's read, again, this applies to this whole list. All of these items down here apply to this whole list. It said, the first one said, all vaccines listed are accepted for entry into Colombia. All of these for entrance to Colombia. The second said, complete schedule do not include booster. Which is pretty much known as a, third dose or second dose, depends on the situation. But, a complete schedule or scheme is definitely not including the booster. The third, it said full schematics are as originally defined by the manufacturer. So they're not making the decision on how many doses you need. They're basing it off what the manufacturer says. And we all know if you're taking the J&J vaccine, the manufacturer pretty much says that you only need 1 dose. This one right here, the fourth one said booster vaccination are desirable, but not necessary to enter Colombia. In other words, you don't need it. If you got your 2 doses, if you meet your scheme, or even if you have 1 dose, you don't need a booster to enter Colombia. Of course, and this one right here says some countries have authorized pretty much a combination of different type of vaccine to enter as part of the basic scheme. So in other words, as you look at this last one right here, this is pretty much talking about a combination of different vaccines. And these countries have approved a different combination. The United States is here. So in other words, if you have 1 dose of Janssen or J&J and 1 dose of Pfizer and Moderna, you're pretty much good to go based off this right here. Or 1 dose of Pfizer and 1 dose of Moderna, you're pretty much good to go as meeting the full scheme to be accepted in Colombia. So there you have it, basically. So to answer your question, do you need so to really answer your question from this point on, do you read? I mean, is 1 vaccine enough that the J&J is good to go? I mean, I really didn't share this, but there's one other country that has a 1 vaccine. Cuba has a 1 vaccine. I meant to share that here. I kind of skipped it. Yeah. These countries right here, I didn't write it down, but J&J is not the only one. There is another country there is another vaccine that requires only 1 dose to enter. But again, Colombia don't care. I mean, I guess, but I guess at the end of the day, it really depends on the flight people at the airline desk. You know what I mean? They're the one going to determine whether or not you get on that plane or not. And I don't know if they're going to pull up a list or not. You know what I mean? Some things are clear and some things are not. So I guess it depends on where you're coming from or wherever they're going to decide. But then again, they may just say, okay, there's 2 line items on this card and they can't read any of it. They're good to go. You know what I mean? Because I can't imagine going through that many thousands of people and trying to decipher, what is good and what's not. That's just my opinion. So anyway, based on what I see here and what I've read, 1 dose should be more enough to enter the Colombia, without a PCR test. That's the main question. Do you need a PCR test? And based on what I read and what I've shared with you, I say 1. Also, if you've already received it and traveled to Colombia after 14 December, please drop a comment below, because that may help a lot of people, and just kind of share what airlines that you use. Hope you enjoyed this. And if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and comment, subscribe, click the notification bell, and I will definitely see you on the next video.